Thank you for tuning in to Roll Call. The movie you selected is Monster-in-Law.
Hey everyone, welcome to Roll Call, the show where two childless millennials gush over movies and follow an actor's journey from their early years throughout their blockbuster hit.
Because let's face it, we miss Blockbuster.
I sure do. And you know what? If I had a bunch of different temp jobs like Jennifer Lopez did in this movie, I wouldn't mind if one of them was working a few nights at my local Blockbuster.
Get that discount, baby. First dibs on returns. What's up, guys? I'm Bria. And finally, we have J-Lo on a beach, but yet no bikini.
It's true. Although it would be hard to walk those dogs if she was in a bikini.
Bikini top? Like, we meet halfway. Or if she lived on Venice, why couldn't they have had a date or something on the beach? Like, I don't know.
That's true. No. You definitely have a good point. Like, she could have at least... There were a lot of outfit choices in this movie that I am definitely very excited to get into. Because yes. I went so far to text you about it. And hey, everyone, I am Simone. And little did we know, everyone, we had a bit of a serendipitous moment last weekend or a couple weekends ago. Bria came over and spent the night and we did a live in-person recording of Jersey Girl. And that night we just so happened to watch Nightmare on Elm Street. And wouldn't you know it, coincidentally, Jennifer Lopez and Jane Fonda watched that movie together in today's film.
Yes, I totally was like, oh my God, I know that movie. Yes, I had a Leo moment. I was like, wait, hold the phone. And I also noted, I was like, Jane Fonda is totally me watching Nightmare on Elm Street. I was like, girl, really? That's not practical. That's not realistic. All right. So, Simone, you have the honors of taking us back to May 13th of 2005.
Yes, in today's episode, we are chatting about Jennifer Lopez in the role Monster-in-Law, which is just so happens to be a resurgence in Jane Fonda's career. She had took about a 10-year hiatus in between filming, so this was her first movie back to 2005. So very, very excited to cover all things, but most importantly, let's start it off with some pop culture. Now, there are two movies for Jennifer Lopez in 2005 that we're going to be reviewing. So, Bria, I figured for this one, I'd be taking kind of like the first half of the year of general pop culture since the next movie we're reviewing came out in September.
Okay, cool.
So in general pop culture news, starting off with music for the Billboard Top 100, the Hot 100 of the week of May 14th or May 13th when this movie came out. Do you want to guess what some of the hot songs were?
Oh, man, putting me on the spot. Is there a killer song on there?
There is a killer song within the first top 15.
Okay. Doing really Fergie on there?
Uh-huh.
Is there a Nelly Furtado on there, maybe?
Probably on the list, but I don't see it at least in the top 20. I have the whole 100, but forgive me, I did not go all the way down.
No worries. Is Beyonce on there?
There's a Destiny's Child. The Destiny's Child hit Girl.
Yes.
Came in 26. And shoot, I don't see off the top of my head a Beyonce song in the top 100, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. I'm just quickly skimming.
Oh, yeah. I think I'm trying to remember when B-Day came out and I'm blanking, but I just saw it said on Twitter it's like 15 years of deja vu. So I'm like thinking that song might have been out. Okay, those are my guesses.
Okay.
I got a few on there. So.
You did. You know what? You did well. It's so hard because like the mid-aughts, I don't know about you, but for me are kind of like a blur. So I often lump 04, 05, 06, and pretty much 04 throughout 08 when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I lumped all of those together because I'm just like, oh God.
And you know what, too? Like, as a teenager, I think I had a friend who was really into Nirvana and then like was really into like 60s hippie like rock, like the Mamas and the Papas and Janis Joplin and stuff like that. And so, you know, in high school, I was listening to current stuff, but then you also are kind of dibble dabbling in like older stuff and visiting some of that stuff. So it's like a weird time warp kind of feeling sometimes, because like Nirvana to me is very reminiscent of high school, even though their height was like I was a child, I was a baby probably. But that's just how living in the time of LimeWire goes.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And I think in general that like high school is kind of your time to transcend throughout music genres, and it's your time to kind of dibble dabble and find it doesn't like, not that you have to stick to one genre, but you just kind of, like, and you meet new people who expose you to music, right? Like, anyways, so the number one song for the week of May 14th, 2005, number one was Holla Back Girl by Gwen Stefani.
Wow.
Hate It or Love It by The Game featuring 50 Cent.
All right.
Oh by Sierra.
Yes.
Lonely by Akon. Just a Little Bit by 50 Cent. And then I'll go throughout the top 10. We have Candy Shop, 50 Cent. We Belong Together by Mariah Carey. Since You've Been Gone, Kelly Clarkson.
Yes. I'm sorry. That song was on Laguna Beach, so that song is very like...
Oh, it's great. It's great. We have Lonely No More by Rob Thomas and Slow Down by Bobby Valentino.
Oh my God, that song, that was my shit in middle school. Like, I swear, I thought like that's a song that makes me feel like I'm in the music video, or that's like a open the sunroof and put the windows down, like it's nice outside song for me. So absolutely.
Yes.
Oh my God. I could have guessed some of those. It's hard for me to, and you know, it's funny. I would ask my mom all the time, like, what was it like being in high school, like at this time and stuff? And I'd be so irritated she couldn't be like very forthcoming with stuff. And now I understand.
Well, yeah, kind of like I said earlier, things kind of like lumped together. I knew that Holla Back Girls was huge. We know that like My Humps by Black Eyed Peas, like those are huge hits, but it's like if you held a knife to my throat and said, which year did it come out? I'd be like, I don't know. It's like, it could have come out 04, 05, 06. That's all I know.
And like the run that 50 Cent had in that like timeline, like in my mind, I wouldn't have thought of him, even though like I'm like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Like, but all right. It'll be interesting to look at the songs later in the year.
Oh, I know. Yeah, for the second half. Mr. Brightside, I do want to bring up. Your Killer's Hit was number 13 of that week. Boulevard of Broken Dreams hits on 15. Don't Funk With My Heart by the Black Eyed Peas was 16. Geez, 50 Cent had 3 songs in the top 20 as Disco Inferno.
Oh, damn. I forgot about that song too.
And then so close to getting the top 20, but I mean, also a huge song of our childhood was the Whisper Song by the Ying Yang Twins.
Wow, yes.
Little
so
Mama,
many school dances.
How you doing? Oh my gosh. So I don't know about you, Bria, but 2005 was like one of those years that for a long time felt like it was only 2 years ago. But now that we're in 2021, it's like, skirt, wait, that was
16 years ago.
Thank you. I was going to say that was 16 years ago. That like, so it's hard to still kind of get yourself out of that mindset. I don't know about you, but
there's a whole teenager now that exists.
There's
can drive.
Whole ass teenager that can drive. You're absolutely right. So talking about some of the movies that come out of the year. So there's a couple of different lists. There's like the overall hit movies of the year 2005, which I think I'll leave for you, since September is more closely towards the ends of the year and will include more films in this. But for this research, I kind of looked up like the big movies of March, April, and May. So
big movies.
And it's so funny as I was going through this list, which is on moviephone.com or moviephone.org. I saw so many of these films in the theater, so I went through a huge kind of nostalgia trip. So I'm going to go back 1 month. So the top movies of April 2005, just for context, one of the number ones was Amityville Horror, the remake starring Ryan Reynolds, House of Wax, XXX State of the Union.
Triple X. Okay.
Sorry. Oh my God! Leave it in. Triple X.
She didn't mean that, Vin Diesel. Okay.
And Ice-T. Just kidding. I know it's Ice Cube. He's in that movie.
Oh.
That's a low-flying inside joke from our Anaconda episode, which none of you will know about because I cut it out forever. The movie Shudder, Crash, Fever Pitch with Drew Barrymore and Jimmy Fallon, and and The Interpreter, which stars Julia Roberts.
What was Shudder about? Is that a horror movie or
it was like a thriller. It has to do with pictures, like someone's taking pictures. And then for movies of May 2005, some of these end up contributing to the highest grossing films in 2005 in general. You can probably guess which ones out of the list were there, but we have Madagascar. I like to move it. That was huge.
Move it.
Woo! That was huge for DreamWorks during that time. I think like Shrek was very transcending and changing for them as a franchise, but then once Madagascar came out, it kind of breathed some new life into the network. We have Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, so this is the last of the prequels that we're going to get. We have The Longest Yard starring Adam Sandler, Kingdom of Heaven starring Orlando Bloom, who was very hot I just like hot looks wise, but also hot in general because he has Pirates of the Caribbean, he has Lord of the Rings, like he is doing so many. He was in Troy with Brad Pitt, like Homeboy's doing a lot of different stuff during this time. So Orlando Bloom was like a hot commodity in the early mid-aughts. We also have Kicking and Screaming starring Will Ferrell and another scary movie called An American Haunting.
All right. Well, I definitely didn't go see movies in 2005 and I feel like I wasn't even alive then, that these all feel so foreign to me, except for like Madagascar and stuff. Like just something to add to my watch list, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. And I mean, looking at some of the general pop culture stuff of 2005, there were a lot of things that happened that I don't remember happening. I just remember them kind of becoming. And so, for example, Xbox 360 comes out in 2005.
I had one of those.
Yeah, I didn't have one.
I still have it. It's in the garage.
Does it work still, you think?
Probably. It was working until I moved back home. So, but like,
nice.
How long ago was that? Like maybe 5 years ago? 4 years ago?
Yeah, my friend in middle school and high school, Heather, was an Xbox household. I was like a PlayStation Wii household. But yeah, it was fun. But I mean, I just remember.
I have my Wii too. My Wii is in the house there. The Wii is in the house sitting across from me near my Switch. Wii Sports was like amazing.
Wii Sports is great, but also a huge trigger, but that is neither here nor there.
I want to hear this on the car ride.
You will hear it on the you're gonna hear it on the car ride. YouTube officially launched as a company in 2005 as well. I think we talked about this a previous episode when Janet Jackson's wardrobe malfunction, hashtag fuck you Justin Timberlake, but that
Britney.
Free Britney, similarly to the green Versace dress sparking the interest in Google image searches, how Janet Jackson's wardrobe nip slip led to this huge increase in the popularity of YouTube. Like YouTube was kind of like, that was not a driving force for the company to be started, but it was something that was very widely searched for people once they started to, like, how am I going to see a little bit of titty without? And other just general Hollywood gossip news, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston do get a divorce in 2005. It's rumored that there's the relationship with Pitt and Jolie. So I'm sure there's going to be more to be touched up upon next episode.
You know, if Jennifer just held out, Brad Pitt was going to clear it all up for them.
Agreed. Because, I mean, I think once that happened, it was like Bennifer, that was all over the news. And
yes,
if it was like,
they're the second big couple with a joined name,
Brangelina.
Yeah,
that's right. I don't know if you remember this. Russell Crowe got into some trouble during this time. He threw a phone at a hotel employee and had to like take some anger management classes. He pled guilty to second-degree assault. Michael Jackson got arrested in 2005, but ended up being found not guilty of the allegations that were held against him against sexual misconduct with a minor, not just with a minor, but with a child, and child molestation. You can make their decisions yourself. I highly recommend anyone who hasn't watched it, but Leaving Neverland, right? Is that the name of the documentary?
Yes.
So if you, that documentary changed my perspective of everything. So it's a really hard one to get through, but it's very eye-opening. And then two more things I want to talk about. Tom Cruise confesses his love on the Oprah show for Katie Holmes. This is where we get like jumping for joy Tom Cruise in 2005. So he's like on the steroids of Scientology, just like so much in love. And like that was spoofed everywhere. Like everyone dragged him for that. But whatever, he's a man in love. And then lastly, we have Kanye's off script stating George Bush doesn't care about Black people at the televised NBC's Hurricane Katrina relief benefit concert. And
I just want to say Kanye definitely said what probably a lot of Black people were thinking.
Oh no, I don't disagree. Like he said what he said and like wholeheartedly agree. It was just one of those things where those kinds of televised events tend to be so scripted, and celebrities are supposed to remain so quote unquote composed, right? So that was good for him. I mean, we all know how like controversial Kanye West can be, but good for him for actually being like, you know what, fuck this. Like our president doesn't care about Black people. And that was the first time that I, as a free-thinking 15-year-old at this point, was like, what does that mean? And I really started to, like, I'm really glad he brought it to the table, because it was one of those things that had it not come to light, I never would have thought about the socioeconomic disparities of what happened to folks of color during Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah, totally. I have family that lived in New Orleans who like haven't gone back. Like a lot of them moved to California. I think some of them might still be here and some moved elsewhere afterwards. But that, and you know, I miss the old Kanye. And that's what I'm gonna leave on.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and leave on that. You know, I feel like at this point we get so excited now that we get into this section of pop culture, because it's like we're 90s babies, but we're like gritty aughts teens, and there was a saying that was like, the music that was most influential to you between like 14, 15, and 16 is like your default go-to, like it's your comfort music. And I couldn't agree with that more. Like the things that were so nostalgic to me at that age is like I will always go back, and like if I'm not like in the mood to listen to anything, I will go back to something from 04, 05, 06.
You
So
know what? Mine is earlier than that. I will say though, like I said earlier, that my music taste, like I had friends who was definitely going back in terms of rock and exposing me to that. But when I got an iTunes gift card, I was downloading like 90s R&B, like, and asking for like, Mom, can you give me all of these Janet Jackson CDs for Christmas? Did I listen to them in their entirety? No, because iTunes fucked me up. I only listened to the singles, but then I realized later, like, I was like, I have all these albums. I need to listen to them. And that evoked something else. SWV. I like was like, can I get the greatest hits of SWV and like stuff like that? So my comfort music is like of that time, but then also like old stuff I was listening to at that time. So totally agree. Funnily, yesterday I had a few drinks and I listened to the soundtrack from the OC because I was in my feels.
how many Death Cab for Cutie songs are on that OC album?
That one won, which is
Okay.
Lack of Color, which is like my favorite song because of that. That's what made me a Death Cab fan. But the Killers are on there, so that soundtrack definitely sparked a lot of my musical taste. And so I will always give credit to the OC for that.
I love it. And that's like kind of my point, that as we are getting in this mid-aughts point, and shit, even later, I'm sure we're just going to be like, oh yeah, that happened in 2010 or like 2012.
I think so by crazy. That time we're going to be jaded. We're like, oh God, that was so like boom, boom, pow. Like, like that's how I feel. Because that was my senior year. And that song was like every fucking football game or like something. Like,
boom, boom, pow.
Boom, boom, pow. Yeah. Gotta get that boom, boom, pow. Gotta get that. And someone did like a homecoming skit to that shit, and it was just like stuck in my head. Yeah.
Well, for the very same reason, T-Pain Buy You a Drink was my senior year song, and I can't tell you how many times that was played just at my prom alone. I mean, they did it in the beginning for the early folks, a couple of times in the middle, one time, like at least 4 times that song was played.
That song is a classic though.
It's a banger. I want it played at my funeral. Take note.
Also, fuck you, Usher, for making T-Pain depressed and saying he fucked up music.
Yeah, he had no business. We love T-Pain. All right, so that's kind of my point, that we love this era of music so much and general pop culture that we can talk on and on about it. And as we have started editing more and more episodes, we're like, whoa, we really need to cut ourselves down. So Bria, I want to hear some box office numbers of how Monster-in-Law did in the theater, because I know it went up against some big films that month of May. So I'm curious to know how it did.
Well, yes, Simone, coming at you with numbers from the box office. Monster-in-Law had a budget of $43 million. I'm going to assume a good chunk of that is casting.
Yeah.
And locations, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe some cameos. Were there cameos in there? No.
No, I mean, unless you count Jane Fonda's mother-in-law, because her cameos, but I don't know if you would count that as a cameo or just like
no. Yeah, I'm thinking of like her pictures because she's supposed to be this talk show host. But yes, those are actually Jane Fonda's pictures.
That's what I was asking. I wrote that down as a question, so I'm glad that you looked it up because I didn't.
It's a flex on her part.
Hell
anyways,
yeah.
Back to the numbers. So budget definitely probably goes to the cast and locations. It had an opening weekend of $24 million and then a gross of $155.4 million worldwide.
Oh, out of 43 mil was the cost?
Yes. So
All right, not bad.
definitely not a flop. So
Not a
JLo's
flop.
on the up and up.
Good job.
Yes, and now for the segment I have come to thoroughly love, Little Roger Ebert. Simone, would you like to take a nice little guess at how many stars Mr. Ebert gave Monster in Law?
So this movie surprised me in that I gave it more stars than you would think someone like me would give a movie like this, because I don't necessarily put this in the category of a rom-com. I see this just more as like a comedy as a whole, which
Yes.
we'll totally get into in a little bit. I think that Lil Raj might have rated this less than I have. I think I might have given this more pumps of butter than Lil Raj gave stars. So I'm guessing Lil Raj gave this a 3.5.
Don't buy any lottery tickets this
Fuck!
weekend. Now that I've said that, do you want to take another guess, maybe, or
I'm
should I
guessing
just
it
lay
was
on
way
you?
less. Was it 2.5? Was it 2?
Nope.
1?
Yes.
No! Are you kidding me?
No. The title of his review says Monster of a Mistake.
1?
Yes.
Oh, Roger. Roger. May you rest in peace, but I respectfully disagree with you on this one. I'm standing up and fanning myself. I am feeling away. Wow. Okay. So we know that these kinds of movies are not up his bag. Like he's okay. What? How he tell me the manner in which he shits on this movie. Let's hear it.
I usually, I really get into the pop culture stuff, and I usually don't like I like when you do his reviews, but that reaction, I am glad to be on the other end of this because I give you 4 pumps of butter for that reaction.
I'm shooketh, honestly, Bria. I'm shooketh.
Okay, so Roger Ebert rated Monster in Law 1 star. Let's see why. So I just want to say he starts out very strongly as clearly hashtag Team JLo.
He likes her.
Yeah. Faithful readers will know I'm an admirer of Jennifer Lopez. And older readers will recall my admiration for Jane Fonda, who I first met on the set of Barbarella. What a flex, Ebert. What a flex. But he says, and I kind of agree with him. He says, watching Monster in Law, I tried to transfer into fan mode, enjoying their presence while ignoring the movie. I did not succeed. My reveries were interrupted by bulletins from my conscious mind, which hated the movie. And I felt like that too. There was so much in this movie that I was just like, what? So many bullet points in my notes. So many. I have like a page and a half of notes. But he goes on to say, like, I hated it above all because it wasted an opportunity. You do not keep Jane Fonda off screen for 15 years only to bring her back as a specimen of rabbit momism. Which, I don't know if I completely agree. Like, she chose this role. She can come back how she wants to, but yeah. I do think this was a missed opportunity, especially with Jane and JLo. And those are the great parts to me that I was just like, yes, absolutely. I'm trying, where was that one line? Oh, this was hilarious to me. Because talking about Jennifer Lopez meeting Kevin, she's like, she can't believe a guy like that would really like a girl like her, which is unlikely since anyone who looks like Jennifer Lopez and walks dogs on the boardwalk has already been hit on by every .com entrepreneur and boy band dropout in Santa Monica, along with Trump and Charlie Sheen. And then he, his review is like very much a summary, and unfortunately I didn't just pick out the quotes I liked because it was all really excellent. Please go read it if you ever so think so.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know that was like directed maybe towards our audience in general, but I'm reading this right after we finish recording because I make it a point to not, even if I'm assigned the job of talking about Lil Raj for the show, I make it a point to not read it until after I've watched it because I don't want anything to like sway what side I feel. I don't want to say embarrassed, but like I feel very differently about this movie than he does. And of course,
will lead to great conversation.
Yeah, of course, his word is not the like Bible of movie reviews. It's just someone that like we respect him just because he's such an iconic movie reviewer. And he does, like, he has good points.
Yes. So the last point is about the ending. So spoiler alert. So he basically talks about like the moment, or the movie hinges on this like moment of waiting for this thing to happen, which is the moment that Viola realizes that Charlie is actually great and just accepts her. And he says, everything else Viola does is an exercise in postponing that moment. The longer we wait, the more we wonder why A, Charlie doesn't belt her, and B, Charlie doesn't jump Dr. Kevin. Actually, I meant to write dump, but either will do. Which, ooh, Lil Raj, spicy. And then by the time the happy ending arrives, it's too late because by then we don't want Charlie to marry Dr. Kevin. We want her to go back to walking the dogs. She was happier, we were happier, the dogs were happier. The end.
Wow.
So, Simone, you kind of told us, but let's confirm. How many pumps of butter are you giving Monster-in-Law?
People of the jury, people of the room, people of the court, please let my comment be made loud and clear. I am not gonna go back and rewatch it and try and like change my mind. I'm going how I felt last night when I finished watching this. I'm giving this 4 fucking pumps of butter. I had a great time watching this. This was a romantic comedy / movie that's most likely aimed towards women in general. But out of Wedding Planner, out of Made in Manhattan, out of the more like romantically driven films, this is my favorite. I had a really good time.
Wow.
I had a really good time watching it.
Wow. Oh my God. Okay. I don't know. I think this is the part where we can't podcast together anymore. I will drive to Tahoe myself. I will see you there. You can share a room with someone else. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, I'm very interested to see where we differ on this movie. I find that interesting. I mean, it's fun always fangirling together about stuff, but it's also really interesting to be like, you really like this and I didn't. And I'm like, but yeah. So, and it's rare for me to not like something. So
yes, I feel like the shoe's on the other foot now when we finished watching Made in Manhattan, because I said what I said. I'd be fine if I never see this movie again, and you felt differently.
That's a very strong opinion. That's why, like, I wouldn't even say that about Blood and Wine. Like, I might watch that dumpster fire again. Like, I might. Who's to say I won't? But I would watch it like with someone just to be like, yo, this movie's trash.
So the only person you're gonna watch it with is me again. No one else is gonna watch it.
Hey, I have other friends, kind of.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm just like, I don't know, just like it's not one of her most popular films.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You got to really sell it. You got to really sell it. Like, hey, one of Roger Ebert's favorite movies that Jennifer Lopez was in.
Which, I mean, I will argue that the difference between this and Blood and Wine in terms of the stars is like, I don't agree on that part of it, but I do agree on a lot of the points he made.
Hmm.
And on that note, I'm going to give Monster in Law like a nice, generous 2 pumps of butter. Usually I'm the overzealous 4 pumps. So this is this is funny that we're it's like we Freaky Friday'd and switched bodies.
That's so funny. Okay, well, shit, let's get into it, man. We both watched interviews for this movie. Now that we know like how many pumps of butter we've given. Actually, sorry, before we even get into the cast and the interviews, Bria, can you give us a little off the dome cuff summary of what this movie is about?
Should be great since I don't really like this movie. Okay. Monster in Law is a movie about, I believe Jennifer Lopez plays Charlie,
Mhm.
short for Charlotte.
Yep.
And she has this very generic meet cute with Michael Vartan's character who plays Kevin. And they have this very serendipitous, like they keep running into each other thing going on. And finally, he asks her out and they fall in love very, very quickly and move in together. His mom, played by Jane Fonda, is Viola. She's a TV host, pretty legendary seeming, kind of like a Barbara Walters type, Oprah type. And she loses her mind, which ironically, free Britney Spears, but the pop star that is on her show to me was very much like a Britney Spears-esque
Oh,
type
I'm
of,
pretty sure she was supposed to be.
yes,
Yeah.
pop star. And so she loses her marbles and attacks her on air. And that is also because she was getting replaced and fired. But so she is now, her life has changed and uprooted. She's also kind of an overbearing mom in general, it seemed like. And her and Kevin didn't really have like the greatest relationship, but he's now in this new relationship and she has nothing better to do than to hate on his new girlfriend. And so a lot of the story and hijinks is her, trying to kind of run off Charlie and not let this relationship, which turns into a very quick engagement, really take off. And so a lot of it is Viola doing stuff to Charlie and being over the top. And then finally, Charlie realizes that she's doing that shit on purpose and finally kind of gets in on her own comeuppance and getting even with her. And then it all culminates at the wedding. And finally, they have this moment of like, you know what? I want you to marry my son and be happy. And the end. I'm just trying to think if the trailer, like based on my summary, I feel
Yeah.
like this would be a movie I'd be like, oh yeah, I know what this is about.
Oh,
maybe
no.
from the trailer.
Yeah, no. Your summary of it is very similar to the trailer. It's very much about like Charlie meets the love of her life, but can she handle her new mother-in-law? And then
Yeah,
it's
that sounds
like,
familiar. Okay.
yeah, then it's like her and Wanda Sykes, shenanigans and all of that. So
All right,
honestly,
so
Michael Vartan's not really in the trailer too much.
no, but I mean, he's like inconsequential to the movie too. So,
Kinda. Sorry, Kevin. Inconsequential.
so on that note, let's talk about the cast. I mean,
Yeah.
I love Jane Fonda. I love her on Grace and Frankie,
Yeah.
and I really would like to watch some of her more infamous like work from when she was younger.
Yeah.
Just haven't yet, but maybe I'll do a little mini roll call for myself with a little Jane Fonda exhibition. But I think that casting's great. I love Wanda Sykes. She's amazing. Michael Vartan is not my cup of tea if I had to rate him on the scale of JLo's male co-stars and love interests. He probably would be at the bottom at this point.
Interesting. Is that just like your personal attraction to him or like your experience with him in other roles?
Oh, just personal attraction. I don't know that I probably have seen stuff with him in it, but it's not very memorable. What is he in?
He is most commonly known as the hot teacher from Never Been Kissed with Drew Barrymore.
Oh.
Which that role is incredibly problematic. That's not about what this podcast is, but he was, I don't know, I thought he was a fucking fox in that movie. But then, like, knowing what I know now, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. But okay, go on. Go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, a funny, fun fact. The woman who is who is his ex-girlfriend, Fiona, is played by Monet Mazur, and she was Jennifer Lopez's sister-in-law in Angel Eyes, who her brother was unfortunately beating. And then we have Adam Scott, who is, I think this is probably like one of his early roles, small roles, but he's very well known now. Will Arnett's in there for a hot second. Like you said, you have a pretty awesome cameo or, scene stealing spot from Elaine Stritch. You have all those people. Any enjoyable casting for you, or
I honestly thought the cast was great. Knowing what I know now, I mean, I'm not really sure what Will Arnett and Adam Scott were doing at the time. I think they're much more famous now than they were in 2005. I felt like their roles were a little like forgettable, unfortunately, but I love them individually. Adam Scott was wearing a shirt. He played a gay man in this movie. He was wearing, you know which one I'm talking about. It's called like Your Next Sugar Daddy.
Yes.
And I was like, put that on the list for another t-shirt that I want. That is so funny. And then Will Arnett also played a doctor or someone who worked in the medical field who was Kevin's friend. So, but oh my gosh, no, overall, I felt like the cast was great. There were a lot of people who I was like, oh, I've seen them before. You do the Leo meme where you can point them out. And it was good to see Monet Mazur again, even though she plays a different character, which I have some feelings. If one thing I could really shit on about that movie, it was her, but not her in particular, about how her character was handled. But gosh, I love Wanda Sykes. Like, her stand-up was something that used to be on all the time late night on Comedy Central. And if my parents were cool enough, they would let me stay up and watch. And I always thought she was so fucking funny and so, like, progressive and forward. And I don't know if you watch, there were like some vignettes and like video reels behind the scenes and bloopers and stuff for this. I don't know if what she said, but it was like taken out of context, but it was really funny. And she was just like, yeah, my whole porn collection has grown since the advent of DVDs. And then it like cuts to something else. Like, she's so funny. I love her.
Talking about interviews and videos and stuff, like there was a thing Jennifer Lopez did talking about this role and like the scene where her and Jane Fonda are slapping each other at the wedding, and how like they really went for it, and how amazing Jane Fonda was to work with, or the scene where she's smashing her face in the cake, like those kinds of things. Like, I wanted to like this, like I watched that prior to watching that movie, and I was like, oh man, this sounds so fun. Like, it sounds like they had a good time making this movie, so I wanted to like it. It just like it's a movie that movied, and I couldn't like be like, oh, it's just a movie. Like, I was just like, no, you're moving all wrong.
Oh no. I was also surprised to hear that Jennifer Lopez didn't have a stunt double for the cake dipping scene. That like that was all her, because the only close up we see is we get this like, it's basically it's an out of body kind of semi-small dream sequence where Jane Fonda's thinking about getting her anger and tension out right after her son proposes, and she's gonna like smash Jennifer Lopez's face into this cake, and we see it over and over and over again. Then we get this like slow motion pullback of Jennifer Lopez, and she really does, like Mrs. Doubtfire, have a full face of cream all over her face. But for the other ones that were fast, I was like, oh, that was like a dummy or a stunt double. But I was very surprised and kind of like happy to know that they really went there, and that too, that Jane Fonda had taken a break from acting, and I think Gen Zers might know her now as someone who is really outspoken in the not just the Me Too movement, but just in like human rights
Oh
and
yeah, Jane Fonda has a mugshot, baby.
Yes, and Jennifer Lopez says that she's straight up gangster in this.
Yes.
She really respects
Yes.
her, and that they didn't know if she was going to accept this film, but that the reason Jane Fonda had agreed to take this role was because she wanted to work with Jennifer Lopez. So like, kudos for
Yes.
Jennifer Lopez for having that rap sheet and for being reputable and easy to work with and fun to work with and all of that. So what a fun thing to have on your acting bucket list.
Like that is such a flex to be like, wow, Jane Fonda did this movie because of me. What?
Yes.
And you know what? Honestly, it seems like in that it's an older interview, like it's not from the time this movie came out, but like a couple years later that Jennifer Lopez is talking about the movie. But
Yeah.
she's like, I feel like we were really like our characters at that time in our lives because like I
Yes.
was like afraid of Jane Fonda because she's just like Jane Fonda, which is like so cute and like relatable. It would probably us like meeting J Lo and Jane Fonda just be like, oh my god, like
Yeah.
so that's amazing in my eyes. So chef's kiss.
Yeah, that interview was really fun. That's from a YouTube video. Let me pull it up super duper quick. I just want to say it out loud for anyone that wants to watch it. It's I react to Monster in Law, and it's a 5.5 minute clip of her talking about, again, and that's what I love about it. It's her just talking about working with Jane Fonda. It's not about anything else. But I love that you brought up that she was her character at that time. And again, I'll talk about this when we get to our ending segment about acting choices in this character and how it compares to other roles. But I really liked Charlie. I thought she was an incredibly endearing character. So, and but Jennifer Lopez was also married to Mark Anthony at this time. This was before they had children, right? So
yes,
they
newlyweds very much.
yeah, so she was probably very like bubbly and happy and giddy and silly and carefree, much like Charlie was.
And you have to think too, like this movie is kind of also a comeback for Jennifer Lopez in respects because the last two movies she did, well, not Shall We Dance, but her track record prior to that was all like tied to Bennifer and Geely and
Mm-hmm.
Jersey Girl. And so and Shall We Dance, but this is like a major headlining comeback for her in a way. So Simone, I watched David Letterman's interview and I text you and I was like, oh boy, this is a doozy. And so here is the segment where we shit on late night hosts and their shitty ass interviews. I am dying to know what you thought about this interview. Lay into Mr. Letterman, please.
So this interview, you can find it in 3 or 4 parts on YouTube, at least 3. Jennifer doesn't get into her bit about Monster in Law until part 3. So that's at least 2 commercial breaks worth until she gets into Monster in Law, because that's how I like to think YouTube cuts up these clips, is like before they break into commercial. So the first half of this interview is David Letterman kind of gives her a hard time about like, oh, you're only here to promote movies, you're not here to see me. And then they do this whole fake thing where they try and schedule a time for her to come back on the show, but obviously she's busy as hell promoting this movie. She also starts to discuss a little bit about her relationship with Mark Anthony, and he asks her a very private, intimate question about what they like to do at home, and she kind of is really good at deflecting it and goes like, well, like he's a painter, and she I think she has a bit of autonomy. Maybe that's not the right word. She has a bit of like say in her career that she doesn't necessarily have to play along with these horny, gross old men asking her questions about her sex life, that she kind of like deflects it off. But yeah, she goes ahead and she talks about, again, how kind of like Michael Vartan, who she talks so much about how great it was to work with Jane Fonda and how much fun she had into making these movies, and that romantic comedies are one of her favorite movies to watch, and so therefore
Yes.
they're one of like her favorite movies to make.
I just want to say that like Jennifer Lopez didn't do a lot of promo for Shall We Dance. So I watched Richard Gere's interview, and the contrast of men going on these shows and women, like it's annoying. Like, yeah. And I'm curious if like with the influx of like Gen X hosts like Jimmy Fallon and Conan and those guys, Carson Daly and whatnot. I'm missing one. What's the one guy?
James Corden.
No, not him. Jimmy Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel, the other Jimmy.
Yes. But those guys. And I'm interested in seeing if I've watched some here and there, but I'm kind of interested in seeing if they are better about this stuff, because she doesn't get like Richard Gere's whole interview for Shall We Dance is him talking about horses and like his shit. Like Jennifer Lopez doesn't even get to like get into like, oh yeah, I'm really into this and like get off into some weird like fangirling thing about something. And I just find that so interesting that a lot of the women, or at least for Jennifer Lopez, I won't say that I've watched a bunch of 90s David Letterman or Leno interviews. Funny too, we haven't seen a Leno interview in a while. So I wonder.
Jennifer's like, oh, Leno wants me on. I want that pervert.
It's annoying. So I will not go on and on about that, but
yeah. It's unfortunate, but I like your point as we get further along, not just in this Jennifer Lopez series, but in this podcast in general, of seeing the transcendence of. It will be interesting to see how these interviews move within the time and how different interview hosts tackle certain questions, because they're not on the Late Show, but on some of the promo press junket interviews where interviewer is female and they ask more like interesting questions about roles and characters and preparation and all like more like method stuff versus like what do you like to do in bed, like. So I don't know,
like this outfit, this is an interesting outfit. Yeah. How do you feel when you wear something like this? Like, dude. Also, I want to say with her deflecting like the questions about Mark Anthony, I think, and I've read in some magazine articles that I've been reading so that we can get some little bonus episode info on J-Lo and Mark Anthony. But it seems like she learned a huge lesson from Bennifer 1.0, and she definitely buckles down and is very like hum about her new marriage with Mark Anthony.
Agreed. And she's a lot more private.
Yes. So I'm very interested to continue seeing that shift in her, and then also kind of seeing her like unshift from that lately. But yeah, so those interviews were pretty yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into this movie because I'm dying to hear your thoughts.
Okay, well, I guess if we're talking about career choices in general, forgive me, because I think for the sake of this episode, I'm going to compare Charlie to the two other roles of I'm going to compare her in Shall We Dance, and I'm going to compare her to Wedding Planner and Made in Manhattan, since those were the most romantically kind of driven movies. I'm not going to count Geely. That's just like a whole thing. It's on its own.
Its own universe.
Yes. That Charlie is a really good female lead for a movie that is going to be, for the most part, put in that romantic comedy section, she never really changes. She never feels like she has to change and fit a certain mold for Viola or for Kevin. That she's someone who is bubbly and carefree and sassy and silly, and she seems to be very comfortable and confident in her own skin. That's how I interpreted it. And that, yes, in Wedding Planner, she, her character is so like atypical and highly organized and confident, yet they made it seem as if she was lacking something. And then in Made in Manhattan, she takes her job very seriously. She has her eye on the prize. She wants to be promoted to manager. She's extremely organized. She is a single mother. She's trying to do it all. But yet they make it seem as if she's lacking something. I never felt like Charlie was lacking anything. I felt like, kind of to what Roger Ebert's point was, she could get anyone. She's just kind of waiting for this opportune moment. So I'll pause there because I want to give some room for you to say something. But it was the moment where she said, when she was talking about planning her wedding with Jane Fonda, with Viola, and she said, well, I wrote it down. She said, I'm making my dress to fit my body and not the other way around. And as someone, as a lot of women and men and just people in general who like struggle with body image issues and dysmorphia, like it's a very comforting thing to hear. And for someone, especially an actress like Jennifer Lopez, whose looks are highly put out there and emphasized, and don't get me wrong, there were things that were said about her butt and about her body type, and Jane Fonda even fat shames her, which is like, fuck you, man. That's like totally not the point. I felt like for a rom-com chick, she had a lot of self-confidence that not a lot of women tend to have in romantic comedies. Like there seems to always be something that's like lacking and missing, but I feel like her character was almost complete in its own.
Yeah. I respect your opinion and I agree with it. I don't disagree with it, but I think my biggest problem with Charlie is that she seems like a pushover and she seems like she doesn't have a backbone. And I think that to me, so far, Jennifer Lopez has played some pretty strong characters and some very tough women. And to go from someone like in Shall We Dance, where she's like this kind of tight ass, like,
yeah.
And to go, and then, Geely, she's this, so-called very kind of tough, assured girl too, as well, and very confident as well. And then Jersey Girl, even the briefest moments that she's in there, like it seems like she has her shit together and she knows what she wants. I think that you're right in terms of that Charlie seems very confident in herself and like loving who she is, and she doesn't want to change that for anybody, and I respect that. It's the stuff that, like, there's so many moments in this movie, and I think that's like what Roger Ebert takes out of it too, because he mentions, there's like things that are happening that Viola's doing where it's just like, really? Like, you're just gonna let her like kind of walk all over you, or just not? And then part of it too, like my biggest critique is not so much Charlie, because it's like, those kinds of relationships are delicate, like that's someone else's mom and that kind of stuff, and you want to have a good relationship, or at least amicable and respectable. So sometimes, you do kind of bite your tongue and stuff like that. But homegirl should have went to her dude and been like, look. And when she did do that, he was like, come on, can't you just let her, like, she's having, and it's like, hold the phone. Nah, like, you need to check your mom, and I'm doing my best right now, and you need to say something to her. But
agreed. And I actually don't disagree with you there. I think the biggest problem of this movie is Kevin.
Yes, I do agree.
I think if anyone's a pushover, it's kind of him, because he doesn't seem to have a backbone to say no to his mom or to Fiona,
Yes.
which is my biggest red flag of this movie. But I appreciate, again, like, I appreciate your opinion. I think the reason why, again, I could just be going way too meta for this, but the reason why Charlie's character could have come across as a pushover, someone without a backbone, is because of that generational difference between, you know, your generation and then your in-laws. But she also doesn't have, we're led to assume that her parents are not in the picture, that they're past, right? She said that. They said that they died ambiguously when she was little. And we see that little moment she's going out of the house for one of her temp jobs, she like kisses her parents' picture, right? So because she doesn't have these parental figures of her own in her life, and the people that are close to her, unlike in Enough, where she has like a pseudo dad and like other elder caretakers kind of looking after her, her people that are looking after her are her friends, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that especially for someone who meets what they might think is the love of their life, you do want to put off a good impression to your new in-laws. You want to be a yes person. You want to like be sweet and be agreeable. So I think she comes across as a pushover in the beginning, but by the midpoint, when she's like, oh, this bitch has been stalking me and now I'm going to play her at her own game, I see more of a stronger character coming out who does stand up for herself. But maybe I'll save this segment when we do get into Michael Vartan's character, Kevin. But that was honestly my biggest issue. I had no issue between Jennifer Lopez and Jane Fonda.
Yeah, this might be the epitome of like, I'm not a killer, but don't push me energy. Because, yeah, I could see that. Because for me, like entertainment wise, I feel like it doesn't get interesting until Charlie kind of figures that out and is like, oh, okay, so you can play this game. And I feel like that just happened too late in the movie. Like, and part of me is like, why do we even need Michael Vartan? Like, I mean, we need him for them to come together, but at the same time, like, we didn't need to see them meet each other. To me, also, their relationship happens really fast, and we don't get any payoff of that in terms of like romance or anything. So it's like, why show that? Why not just intro with them already together? They've been dating. Now he's going to propose to her. Also, that proposal was weak as fuck. She deserved way better. And yeah, so that's just I feel like this movie has it has possibilities. It is a nugget of like, oh, there's something there. It's just like the execution was just like, but why did we do this way?
And again, it's funny you say that, because I agree with everything you say. But I didn't pinpoint those as the things that I like shot on this movie for particularly.
Yeah.
So I agree. The first 15 minutes or so is about Charlie and Kevin coupling up in these meet cute coincidences, Kevin pursuing her. One of Charlie's side jobs or temp jobs is working for a catering company that her friend runs, and so she works as a server. She just so happens to be serving Kevin's like medical team or field or whatever. It's like some kind of swaggy kind of doctor event. And, you know, she gets self-conscious because she's like, oh, he can't possibly see me as a waiter. And again, like, I agree with what our boy Lil Raj has to say. It's like, J-Lo, are you kidding me? Like, you could be picking up dog shit and you'll have like 10 people behind you trying to ask you out. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. But, you know, there's that whole thing where Fiona feels like threatened by Jennifer Lopez and tries to do the trope of like, he's gay, he's not into it. They see each other again, blah, 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 blah. Like, I agree. There's a lot of lead up to this relationship that could have been done in about 5 minutes and like a little quickie, kind of like Enough. Like, they meet and then like they do this little montage of like their relationship and whatever, of everything unfolding. I think that that could have worked out better, and then had Jane Fonda come in a lot sooner and their relationship starting to really take off as they plan a wedding. Because even though it's a quick proposal, it feels like even a fucking more quicker wedding. So
Yeah.
to have like maybe a longer engagement and a longer time for these shenanigans to ensue would have been better.
I feel like their relationship, another reason why it could have been scrapped, is like it's fucking generic as fuck. Like she's sitting on the beach with the dog she's walking, yeah, taking a break, enjoying the California sunshine, and he's running by and they lock eyes. And then all the like, oh, I run into you at the coffee shop. Now I'm catering this event like thing. Like it's just like it's not even like even enough as like problematic as that relationship was, like you're like, damn, that's kind of like that's like a decent like, oh, how'd your parents meet sort of story, like where it's like, oh wow, that's interesting, and then my wife really loves your house, and that like there was no romance, and for him to be like this rich surgeon, like he could have been doing a lot more, I feel like, to swoon her. Also, hold the phone. He shows up to the beach with coffee, like, hey, you know, I wanted to, how do you like stalker alert? Like, I was just like, what the fuck? Like, that's kind of creepy. Like, what is that creepy or is that cute to you? Like, I know it's a movie, but like,
it's creepy. You know, like if he saw her again at the coffee shop and was like, all right, like let me get you a coffee instead of bumping into each other. The fact that he kind of knew that he would see her again at the beach with a bunch of these with like walking dogs, that he kind of anticipated seeing her again, is a little weird and unsettling. I think that he's just a mama's boy. He's an only child who is very pampered and loved by his mother. And it sounds like Viola is a person who hasn't heard the word no a lot in her lifetime, and especially by her son. And so that they were very like both equally challenged in this realm.
Yeah, I feel like he could have been like, he could have been at the beach again, but like, you also jog there. So, like, why would he not be jogging again and be like, this time I'm going to stop and talk to her?
Yeah, no,
like,
I agree there. I think what kind of gets you though to forget about that's the stalkery nature of that. It's not even a meet cute. Like he was straight up waiting for her at the beach with a coffee. So who knows how hot the coffee was at that point. He might have been waiting for hours. That he makes up for it, and I say make up for it with huge asterisks. When she says like, yeah, oh yeah, like you're into me, describe my eyes, and she like turns around and closes her eyes, and he describes them as like very beautiful and romantic way that even had my hard ass, who like hates that kind of stuff, was like, that's so sweet. I thought that was really cute. That was a little redeeming, that it made us forget that like you were waiting for her at that beach. Versus, I totally agree. It makes sense if he was jogging and they ran past each other and he goes and like turns around and starts jogging next to her, to be like, hey, why don't, instead of bumping into each other, I just get you a coffee? Or like, when are you done walking your 12 dogs?
Yeah.
Let's meet up.
Oh man. Okay. So, I mean, let's get into some other parts of this movie. I mean, I thought Wanda Sykes is always hilarious as like kind of a side character. I love her on her show on Netflix, The Upshaws. And I love to see her in anything really. I love her in what's that movie with Chris Rock where he oh fuck, he like dies and comes back as this old white dude. I think it's like Down to Earth or something. I used to watch that all the time. Can't remember the movie title, but yes. So she was a highlight for me. I was like, yes, Wanda Sykes. Like, note, I love her. Yes.
Yeah. No, I wrote several times that she's a legend. She's funny. And I think or at least I like to think that a lot of her one-liners were ad-libbed or made off the cuff, but she had a lot of really good, one-liners. The only thing that I thought was a little weird was that, granted, she is Viola's assistant in this role, assistant and friend, long time. They've been clearly had been together for a long time. That they can kind of, at least Ruby, Wanda Sykes' character, can kind of predict what Jane Fonda's reaction to something's going to be, right? And like she can really tell her what's on her mind, without having the risk of like being fired
No
or
filter.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, she should not have the filter, but yeah, she had a lot of really good one-liners. But the thing that bothered me was that like she waited a while to say like, you ever just think that like she could be good for him, and that she never tried to necessarily stop Jane Fonda from like doing some of the shenanigans, especially when they added nuts to the gravy. That she was just like, I don't know, it was more of like a physical comedy thing. Again, I wasn't mad at it, but I was just like,
Yeah.
as maybe there could have been a little bit more that was said between the two. But I thought that their comedy duo as a pair worked really well.
Yeah. How did you feel about Viola, who is kind of like the pseudo villain of this movie, since you love Charlie so much?
Yeah, well, I didn't, maybe I was just looking at it more through a lens of Jane Fonda, who I have a lot of admiration and respect for as a person and as an actress and an activist and all of that. So maybe I am a little biased when I was looking at her role, her role, but she straight up tries to commit murder. I mean, without knowing how allergic someone is to nuts. But if you add, as a teacher, I know goddamn well for sure that I can't ever have a PB&J inside my classroom ever. Like I have permanently,
Really? Damn.
yeah. Well, just like everyone has a fucking nut allergy these days. So like no matter what, you're always gonna get a roster that's like, someone's definitely allergic, you can't ever have it in your classroom. So for that reason, I've switched to like sun butter, which is made from sunflower seeds. Also extremely delicious. Kept this out. But straight up, knowing she grinds up almonds to put into a gravy to serve to Charlie, knowing that she's allergic. It's kind of like Mrs. Doubtfire when they add pepper to the shrimp.
Yeah.
Help is on the way, dude! But pepper, I think, is just gonna kind of like it's gonna close your mouth. You're a little Pierce Brosnan sensitive to being spicy, but that's totally different from
How white of him.
Seriously. And you know what? It's probably not an allergy. He's just like, I'm allergic. Like the same way that I tell people I'm allergic to bell peppers, which I'm absolutely not. I just can't stand the taste of them.
Oh.
But whenever I go,
really, you don't have night terrors. You,
no!
you're just trying to get the bed to yourself.
That I do. I'm not making that up. But if I ever go to a restaurant and you hear me go like, "Oh, is this possible to do without bell peppers?" I'm allergic. I'm not allergic to bell peppers. Sorry.
You hear that, restaurant employees?
Anyways, I didn't hate Jane Fonda's character. I loved her costume. I loved her experiences, her worldly travels. I thought it was interesting that they had like kept bringing up that she was married multiple times, yet she had these like issues of her son getting married. Maybe it's because I come from a Jewish cultural background where that stereotype can be heightened, not necessarily within my family, but other families that I know of whose mothers kind of resemble that, like, good luck to any girl who like meets my son. Like, you know, like, or just like to
Italian
meet
moms.
Yes,
and,
yeah. So like for that reason, maybe because I can culturally relate to that character just a little bit, I didn't really hate it. I thought that her her tactics to get rid of Charlie were extreme, but I think that that's just done for movies. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone's gonna.
I think I like Jane Fonda, so I don't have a problem with like her acting or anything in this movie. I just feel like there wasn't enough setup for me to understand why she disliked Charlie that much, you know?
Yeah.
And it would have been helpful for me to understand that. At one point I was like, is because like they pull up in their lovely silver Range Rover and they're getting out the car and she's like in a room upstairs and she's like, oh wow, okay, they're here. And so she's like, scoping her out. And like immediately she's just like, oh, like just straight up doesn't like her. And like part of me just immediately, and maybe it's because I'm black, but I was just like, is this racial? Like, but again, this is like a racially ambiguous character for Jennifer Lopez because her parents in that photo, they look pretty white to me.
Yeah.
That kind of bothered me too. I'm like kind of at the point where like I understand wanting like when you're starting out not to be cast in these very like stereotypical Latin roles. But then like at some point I feel like when you have the platform that you do, it's important to give like light to your culture and your people and to be a positive figure in that sense, like
Yeah.
to be the Latina girl who can marry into a doctor's family or something like that. But I mean, that is not Jennifer Lopez's responsibility, but like to me, I'm just like, why her parents are dead in this movie? Why couldn't they be Latino? Like,
Yeah.
who's that hurting? But
Yeah. And I'm sure you were going to bring this up later, but I think that it wasn't so much racially driven as it was class driven. But again, she didn't know that until she met her and like learned more about her status and her background and her work experience, right? I think that Jane Fonda's movie mother-in-law, Gertrude, played by Elaine Stritch, had the identical relationship that Viola and Charlie have. It would have made maybe a little bit more sense to justify the reason behind her psychotic behavior had we known that this previous relationship or this current relationship between Gertrude and Viola exist. Because it wasn't until the last few minutes, really, is a very rushed ending. And I do have issues with the ending. I hated the ending.
yeah.
But with the rushed ending, it was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Let's put a band-aid over it. That's all healed up. We can understand why Viola's acting this way and why she's treating Charlie this way. And then Charlie's just gonna like forgive her. But I think if we got more of that in the beginning, then we would have had some kind of understanding as to why Viola is so determined to hate Charlie without even knowing her, only based on the basis of what we think as an audience was that she's an overprotecting mother.
Yeah. I don't, you're right. I don't think it ends up being racially motivated, but that was my initial like reaction to her being like just seeing her and being like, oh God, like, and then I do think it's class because when she's like, oh, my surgeon's son is dating a temp, like when I think she introduces her to people and stuff.
Oh, she's
and
a
like,
temp. Yeah, she totally dicks on her. And she also said, when she gives her the couture dress, and she definitely makes comments like she doesn't belong. She's not going to belong here. And those are some overarching themes that we've heard from Maid in Manhattan and some of the other roles that Jennifer Lopez has gotten to play. So it definitely brings up issues, maybe not so much of race, but of like social class structure.
Yeah. And also my problem too with Kevin is that when they first come over and he's introducing Charlie and his mom, Wanda Sykes' character is like, do you think this was a good time for this? Because your mom's kind of going through some stuff, a lot's happened, and he's just very steadfast of just being like, no, like, this, I want to do this now, and blah blah blah. And part of me is just like, bro, like, you're not helping Charlie out in this scenario. And I'm just like, at that point, like, I feel like he could have been like, that's another thing I don't like, is that he knows how his mom is, and he doesn't seem to have a great relationship with her. So he doesn't like, there's no like, him kind of being like, hey, my mom is very blah, blah, blah to Charlie, or warning her, or like giving her some heads up, or him being self aware of this. And like, that bothered me in so many ways. I will say his house is very nice.
Oh,
So
yeah.
living for the house porn, but yes.
I mean, all of them had really awesome houses. Even Charlie, who supposedly like split her property up between her friends. Supposedly she might have inherited that from her parents, right? But like,
I thought it was an apartment like complex. That's what, like, they're sitting in a courtyard at one point.
True, but even for her, just apartment in general, for all of like, just she had storage space, and for LA, that's hard.
And for a girl with like all these temp jobs, like,
seriously.
Also, I was like, how many jobs does she have? Damn, like.
Yeah, she kind of does it all. But I like that. She's just like, there's variety in her life. Another thing that really chapped my ass about Kevin, besides that he's just kind of a mama's boy, he's not necessarily problematic in the way that some of the other male leads have been. It's just annoying that he isn't, and you brought this up earlier, that he isn't suspicious of his mom or ever really says no to her. And I think that the biggest driving factor that made me crazy in this is that he never dispels Fiona. He never tries to like explain to Charlie, like, so at first Viola wants Fiona to like get in the way and like fuck up their relationship, and she wants them together because Fiona is of like higher class stature, but Kevin's just not into it. And so in their engagement party, when Jennifer Lopez is trying to fit into this like tight but beautiful vintage couture dress, Fiona, hot and heavy, comes on to Kevin, and she tries to like make out with him, Jennifer Lopez, or Charlie walks in on it, and he doesn't, like, he says she means nothing, and I don't know, he doesn't act as if he doesn't act normal in my idea, like, oh my god, like, she just came on to me, I swear to god, like, I know, like, that bitch is crazy, like, I'm here with you. Like, he never tried to say, like, he never tried to really bounce her off. And then when he shows up at their rehearsal dinner, when they have all the friends over, and that's when they put the nuts in the gravy, that, again, like, she's there to kind of, like, mix shit up. And he's like, what is she doing here? He's never like, get out! Like, I would be... If my own Kevin, because I do have a Kevin of my own, if my own Kevin had an ex that, like, nosy, that would show up to something, and if he didn't back me up to be like, what the fuck are you doing here? I would be highly suspect. So that was his biggest flaw, that he just kind of was like, he lets other people do the guessing work for him. And again, like, he's really not a big character at all. And maybe that has something to do with it. But that he never stands up for Charlie. He never stands up for himself. He's never, like, tries to dispel the other woman. And that bothers me.
So I have a question in my notes. How do we feel about Mama's Boys?
So long as that there's a difference between admiring your mom and being proud and thankful for what she has done for you and provided for you, and the path that they've led, or the things that they've accomplished in their life. And then there's a difference between that and, like, completely idealizing your wife.
Yes.
Like an Oedipus complex, right? Like, I'm not into that at all.
I also feel like, to me, you have to, like, boundaries. You have to establish some, like, this is my wife, you're my mom, I love you, but there are some things that are going to have to change or shift, and, it is what it is. And if you don't accept that, then we're going to have some problems. But But yeah, no to the mama's boys. Not no, but just a little hesitancy.
Yeah, it's okay to love your mother. We think that, or I don't know, I personally feel like, respect to all moms out there. There's no shame and hate in like appreciating your mom, but like when I get married, I want them to know I'm not your mom.
On that note, I would just like to also say that going into like the curtain call, we usually, does this role hold up to today and stuff? And I would like to propose a big movement. Romantic comedies deserve sequels, or, well, comedies sometimes get sequels. We're getting another Wedding Crashers, like however long later, but, that's on some male whiteness. I'm excited. I'm kind of intrigued, but at the same
Wow.
time, like, it's like, but we've moved on from that. Like the time has lapsed, but never, I guess, in Hollywood. But I
Okay.
think romantic comedies, or like this was just kind of a comedy with a little parsley of romance in there. I think this deserved a sequel, and I feel like hopefully it would have vindicated like the dynamic of Jane Fonda and J Lo, like, and because I feel like they have good chemistry, and like the comedy stuff and all that like was great, but it's just the storyline, and I feel like it would have been interesting to see like maybe Charlie's pregnant finally, and like how intense Viola would be about her being pregnant and stuff like that. Like,
Hmm.
and not so much like revenge stuff, but just like overbearing mother in law type
Yes,
stuff.
like, she can't help it. It's just in her nature to be that
Yeah.
like grandma, like wants to tell her how to mother and parent and all that.
Yeah, but so I'm pitching that out there. But
Hmm.
like, so I think this role holds up to today. I think it would be interesting to see another generation take this kind of dynamic on, and to see those differences with like maybe like a millennial daughter-in-law and like a Gen Xer mother-in-law, maybe, or even a
Yes.
boomer mother-in-law, depending on,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but yeah, so I feel like this holds up. I just feel like this movie really tried to get away with moving like, okay, we're just gonna stick with these tropes, and people are gonna eat this up, and we have Jane Fonda, we have Jennifer Lopez, it's gonna be great. And hopefully just really get into some good storytelling and set up for this
Uh-huh.
to really work well.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that.
I do think it's still funny in 2021. Some of it's a little
Yeah.
dangerous, but
It's a little
like,
spicy at some points. I actually had some LOL moments and I appreciated
yes.
that. Like, I don't know, I liked the campiness. I didn't take this one too seriously. Even though it was like two women pitted against each other, ultimately like trying to win the affection of either their soon to be husband or son, I still felt like these roles were usable for today's standards. I mean, if this movie was going to be remade today, would I see it? Might not be on the top of my bucket list, but this was one that I hadn't seen before. I was hesitant to watch, or maybe not hesitant, but just like not as excited as some of the other ones, but ended up coming out very pleasantly surprised and excited.
Look at that. It's funny because like I think I've said this before. This is movie I feel like is always on Bravo or Lifetime or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally on the weekends when they don't want to play, new stuff, and they're just like, okay, have a mini movie marathon. And I never really watched it all. And I know a lot of people really like this movie. They're like, oh, I love Monster in Law. So it's like it's a crowd pleaser.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would probably watch this again just because I will never really say never. Like if it was on TV, I would be like, oh fuck, Monster in Law. And now I could just jump in wherever because I probably am like, I'm not missing much of the
Yeah.
meet cute stuff.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, this is low on my roll call totem pole.
Okay. I res- I respect
uh,
that. Well, Bria, as a way to kind of put a close on this movie, and I love that we feel so differently about it. I truly do. I think that it's made for a really, like, it's funny. We agree on a lot of different things, but then we kind of end up like branching out as to like, I agree, but, and then like it leads us to another segue. But Priya, did you come up with any movie snacks or cocktails that you would pair with this movie?
Yes, I came prepared for once for a movie that I'm not too fond of. Um, but so I'm definitely having shrimp balls.
Nice.
What are those balls? I mean,
Shrimp balls. I
um,
mean, balls that are shrimp. I mean, shrimp that are rolled into balls.
yes. And on top of that, for my drink, I am drinking some red wine from a box, baby.
Hey! Yes, that is a classic line that Elaine Stritch says that, like, when I met you, you were drinking red wine from a box. No shame, I still do it. Hey, but a box wine.
Tip it.
My drink cocktail snack spread, I'm going martini because that was Jane Fonda's drink of choice. Wanda Sykes was like throwing back, like making lots of martinis for her as she was getting back on that booze game. And for snacks, I'm just going hors d'oeuvres, like what you would maybe serve at some kind of a wedding cocktail event. For my wedding cocktail event, my hors d'oeuvres are Totino's pizza rolls. So that's probably it. I'm having martinis and pizza rolls, bitch.
So you're not going to eat J-Lo's tripe?
No, I don't think there's a way that I can like veganize or vegetarianize tripe.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So sorry, you said this earlier, and I really want, if anything, we could squeeze in here to talk about some of the fashion in this movie because there are some
Yes.
looks.
2005, really quickly, was an era that wearing a dress over jeans was
Yes,
huge.
I wrote that down.
And Jennifer did not disappoint in these looks, and she looked so cute, I think. But maybe that's because I was also that bitch that was wearing a dress and jeans or like a skirt over my jeans because that's what Hilary Duff wore. But there's all of her outfits that she's wearing in her temp job. Are some kind of like fitted halter type-ish type of like short dress with probably low-rise jeans because it's the mid-aughts. And she had her hair
bootcut jeans.
Yeah, bootcut jeans. She had her hair either in like a messy bun or these really cute kind of like low Mickey buns in the nape of her neck, which again, that's just a style that I think is so fucking cute, and I thought she looked really, really good in. My one shit for the outfit is her wedding dress at the end of the movie. I thought that wedding dress did nothing for her. That was my least favorite outfit, was her wedding dress that unfortunately she made to fit her body. Like, there was nothing like wrong about the silhouette. It hugged her silhouette very gorgeously, but there was like something really busty about that butt that I felt like, and maybe she was probably just making a dress that was very on trend of that time. Right?
Yeah, probably. I definitely called out the jeans over the dress and not in a fond way. So I wasn't that girl, so I didn't hold it dearly. But it's very much of this time. It's weird because to me, this movie, I feel like doesn't do anything for Jennifer Lopez's beauty. And I don't like the really long hair on her. Like, it looks kind of frumpy, like it's too long. And then she has like these like bangs that are really short and like swoopy. Yeah. And then the color of her hair is like, it's less a typical blondish color, and it seems red in this movie, like almost like an auburn. I don't know if maybe like I'm just looking at it wrong or like my TV color is off, but I think she pulls it off for the time. Like, I can't expect anything but this kind of fashion from this time of the movie. But I thought it was interesting because I've said before how like there are movies where they try to downplay, like, you know, make her seem like just normal chick and not so pretty, and it doesn't work. And like, she does obviously still look pretty, but like this was the most like where I was just like, I feel like 90s fashion we're so like enthralled with now, you know, and nostalgic for that. You're just like, oh yeah, like it's amazing. But I am never gonna be like, I'm gonna be nostalgic for this fashion just because like we lived through it and we remember it, but I don't want it to come back.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, no. Keep keep it. I don't want to repeat it. I do agree. I felt like there were a lot of parallels between her wardrobe and Lizzie McGuire's wardrobe. So maybe that's why I liked it a lot. And her character in general is like outspoken and sassy and silly and bubbly. So I saw a lot of parallels between her and Lizzie McGuire, which I'm always prone to like. But I agree. 2000s fashion can go fuck itself, but like fondly in my memory, if that makes sense.
I will say though, an ever classic, the overall is in this movie, and man, that is my favorite outfit of this movie. Man, can J-Lo rock an overall with paint all over it? Like, sign me up for that any day. Also, that scene annoyed me where she's on the phone with her and he's tickling her. Like, bro, you know your mom doesn't like me. Like, stop. Like, now she thinks we're having sex and I'm on the phone with her. Like, please stop. But yes, overalls and J-Lo, 10 out of 10. No turtlenecks this movie, but we hope to see them in the future. It's too hot.
I think
we're going to Venice on the beach.
Agreed. I think we might see it in some future ones. So, and speaking of which, shall we outro and do a little sneak peek of what we're going to be watching next week, Bria?
Yes. And you don't stop. All right. So thank you again for listening to this week's episode. And to the people who stuck with us so far, come back for another episode of the great value version of Inside the Actors Studio.
And seriously, if you do like us enough to stick around, please leave a review, rate, subscribe to our podcast, Roll Call. That's ROLECALL. Look for the Blockbuster logo, bitch, and take another deep dive down this IMDb rabbit hole as we discuss a little bit more of a serious role with an unfinished life.
Yes, and on that note, if you've got nothing better to do, go figure out a theme to watch a bunch of movies you've never seen.
I'm your host, Simone. Please subscribe to this blessed mess. Leave us a like if you're into it.
And I'm your host, Bria, and it would be awesome to take those buttery popcorn fingers, only 2 pumps from me this time, and give us a review. And, just don't be a dick about it. We want constructive criticism. I've seen some podcast homies on Twitter, like, somebody said, like, my voice was so-and-so. We cannot change our voices, people. We can improve things like how long we talk about pop culture, segments, talk about something else, like, suggestions, things we can change. I cannot change my voice. God knowing, I wish I could. But yeah, keep those kinds of comments to yourself. But on that note, this has been another episode of
Roll Call.